Hello and welcome to a new edition of True Audio Files, where we're going to talk about There Goes Rhymin Simon. The new one step just came out. I just received it, middle of this week. Some people probably received it a little bit earlier than that because they're closer to the distribution area, but essentially it came out this week, and I wanted to take the time to do a little bit of a shootout with another version of it that I have. And want to just kind of talk about how I go about this. But before I do that, I just wanted to say, please subscribe to my channel if you like what you see here. Hit the like button if you like it. Make some comments in the comments section. And hit that alert bell if you want to know when my new videos come out. And also catch me on social media. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, and I have a True Audio Files group on Facebook. So all the information and links are in the description. So, all right, got that out of the way. And I just wanted to talk about There Goes Rhymin Simon. So I unfortunately don't have like an earlier first pressing. I don't have a lot of knowledge of what would be considered the best version out there. But I think the two that I have are pretty good. And, one being the one step. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of give the two, an A-B comparison this week and tell you how I normally do these things is when I get a new version of an album that I'm going to do a shootout with, I'll listen to the new version all the way through at least once first to try to figure out which songs I think will do the best as an A-B comparison. And then I'll usually choose, two, maybe three tracks that I will compare. And this week, or I should say on this particular one, I chose Kodachrome and Loves Me Like a Rock. I thought those ones were probably two of the better options out there for kind of just a good ability to compare the two. So as I've mentioned, I have two versions, and we'll start off with the one that you already obviously know I have, which is the one step here. I've got number 665. Good thing I wasn't 666, but anyways, I know it does. The numbers don't matter, but anyways, I've got a number 665 out of 10,000. And as most one steps are, it is sourced from a digital transfer that Mobile Fidelity did at the Sony studios where they store the master tapes. They bring their own equipment there to transfer the analog tape to DSD 256 in this particular case, and brought it back to California to cut the vinyl. And the next one up is one that came out in a reissue that came out in 2013. It was actually a RSD Record Store Day, I think it was Black Friday Record Store Day reissue, and I believe they did 10,000 copies. I have just like the one step, and this one, if you can see, it was $4.19. This was cut by Ryan K. Smith at Sterling and pressed at RTI. So actually, both copies were pressed at RTI. Obviously, the one step is a 45 RPM. Well, maybe not obviously, but the one step is a 45 RPM pressed on super vinyl, and the RTI, the reissue, is just on standard. Well, probably a little higher end, 180 gram vinyl, just not quite at the level of super vinyl. So that being said, let me kind of go over what my thoughts are on these. I put the one step on, and it was really good sounding, as one would hope and one would expect. I noticed maybe a little bit more noise than I usually do, and it wasn't bad noise. It wasn't quite as quiet as I'm used to on a one step. Still probably quieter than most pressings that are out there by far. But there weren't really that many. There weren't really any ticks and pops, or not that many, not any more than a lot less than normal. Not as many as a bad pressing would be. But beyond that aspect of it, the actual pressing and cut, I should say, just sounded incredible. There was a great amount of deep, tight, natural sounding bass, although I would admit there are some times when it was borderline heavy, but I like that, so it doesn't bother me. But in general, it had this richness to it and a warmth to it and a naturalness to it that just was really, really good and was a really enjoyable listen all the way through. And none of that surface noise I spoke about got beyond a minimal spot. So it really wasn't anything that was a distraction to listening to it. But overall, just sounded really, really good. And, great separation, good wide sound stage, relatively deep sound stage, not as deep as some other stuff I've listened to before, but, I think that's more the recording than obviously the cut. But, good separation, nice air. Just overall, really, really pleased with how it sounded. So then I went to the Ryan K. Smith Sterling cut and put it on, and definitely noticed a difference right away. There was definitely a decent amount of bass, and just overall it did sound really good, but it definitely didn't have that warmth or the natural of a sound, to me anyways, as the one step. You could argue that, because it had a little bit less bass, the times where the Mobile Fidelity one step went a little bit beyond where it should in bass, that, maybe the Ryan K. Smith version was just right there. But I think if you look at the overall big picture, it just, in my opinion, sort of kind of lacked that warmth and naturalness and that the one step did. And, there was a little bit more air to the one step, although not much, because I have to say that overall, you take away the issue that I had with the warmth of it overall, I mean, it sounded very, very, very good. It had the wide sound stage, just as wide of a sound stage as the one step, had the same kind of depth, and quite honestly, it sounded like there was less surface noise on this one, but I think some of that might be just because the one step's at 45 RPM, and 45 RPMs inherently have more surface noise. So, maybe if you technically played the one step at 33, it'd probably be the same amount of surface noise, but very minimal difference. And in either case, it really wasn't all that much of a, if any, of a distraction. But, the best way to describe the difference, in my opinion, is kind of more of a thinness to the Ryan K. Smith one, in terms of, like the acoustic guitars and the percussion just didn't have that naturalness or the warmth to it, or to it that the one step did. The most apparent option thing that I noticed on it was "Love Me Like a Rock." There's a percussion, I'm not very good at being able to pick out types of percussion very often, but it obviously wasn't drums and cymbals, but it was some sort of percussion in the right channel. And this is one of the things that really I noticed the most in that song specifically. Number one, the vocals. There's harmonies going on in that song. They were much more powerful, in my opinion, on the one step, and powerful sounding to me. Richness, deepness of the bass. The percussion sounded more natural. The guitars had a little bit more depth to them because of, I think, that more bass that it had. It just, that song and specifically, it really shined, where you could really hear, it really had more power on the one step than it did on the Sterling cut. But, if I didn't have the one step, I'd probably be really happy with the Ryan K. Smith one, because, like I said, really, really well pressed. It had good sound quality overall. I mean, I would be surprised if that didn't compete easily with the original pressings that are out there, or early pressings. It probably would sound at least as good, and probably as good or better pressed than any of the early ones out there, I would put money on. But, I can't speak from experience because I don't know. So, but that's kind of my take on it. I really think, the one step I feel is clearly superior, but it's also a lot more money. I mean, I looked on Discogs, and, that RSD version you can find for probably $30-$40 maybe. And there's also this was a first release version on Record Store Day. So if you don't need a numbered version or an early pressing of it, they made them later. I think like 6 months to a year later, they reissued them probably going to be cheaper and going to sound exactly the same because it's the same cut. I believe they use the same, vinyl and same pressing plant, RTI, to press them. So it probably sound just as good, and my guess, and I don't know this because I didn't search Discogs, but it'll be cheaper at least than the 40-ish, 50-ish bucks that I saw that the Record Store Day version went for. So that's my take. If you are not a huge bass person, or just you don't like the bass that you typically get on modern masterings or pressings, you may want to go with that Record Store Day version, or the version that came out after, or an early pressing. But to me, it just added some warmth and some power, especially, like I said, it really, really shined through on Loves Me Like a Rock. I mean, it was, that really, to me, set these two pressings apart. Kodachrome was good, and you could definitely hear the differences, but they were more subtle. They're still obvious, but a little bit more subtle than Loves Me Like a Rock. When Loves Me Like a Rock, when those vocals hit, and when there's a little bit of talking right before the vocals hit, once those hit, and then the guitars came in, both on the left and right, and then the percussion came in, just everything about that track just jumped off the vinyl, more so on the one step than on the reissue. So that's my take. I would love to hear your take. I would love to especially hear from people who maybe have an early, or what would be considered a great pressing other than these two, and if you have one of these two or both, how they compare to these. Because I'd really be curious. I would love to know what other people's take is on this. So leave those comments in the comments section in this YouTube video. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch the video. And again, I would really appreciate you subscribing if you could. But that's everything I have for this week. Thank you very much. I hope you have a great day, and I hope you have a great rest of the week. Thanks a lot.